to Vegas to see everyone at the Silver Symposium. Japanese bond purchases are happening right now. This was unscheduled and it is rocking the markets. And I want people to understand how big of a deal this is. First off, the Japanese yen to the US dollar is 149.18 yen to equal $1. We are talking about lows that we have not seen in the last 5 years. As a matter of fact, we're right about to hit the extreme sharp lows of 2022. And it's a big deal. Why? Because last November, when this happened, Japan said that if this continues and the yen keeps weakening to the dollar, they're going to have to intervene. Now, as of that announcement, around October, November area, we were talking about really close to where we're at right now. And it's very important to understand that that meeting between South Korea, Japan, and China that is happening, in their words, as soon as possible, I believe is very important because China is going to build up their confidence, Japan's confidence, and South Korea's to walk away from the dollar in trade. I believe that you are going to see in the next 3 to 6 months an announcement come out of two of our major partners, trading partners, that they're going to stop buying US bonds. You've heard me. I'm telling you right now, I believe that is going to happen. And that is going to send the dollar reeling. Why? Because we need outside buyers to buy our debt. If we do not, then rates keep going up. And as a matter of fact, if you have been paying attention to the bond market lately, we have seen multiple auctions where nobody is showing up. Not nobody. What I mean is like historically low numbers. In the recent past, we have had nothing to compare this to. The fact of the matter is more and more countries are walking away from buying our bonds, okay? That is causing rates to increase because the government still needs to loan money. Private corporations, privately traded companies need to raise money. They do that through the bond market. So what happens when there's no one buying? They have to offer a higher rate of return, especially in a day where inflation is raging all around the world, not just the US. Investors, even if they're as big as governments, want a rate of return. They need to be able to go back to their people and say, hey, look, we've invested money this way and we're trying to make the best rate of return. Okay, so now here's the story out of Barron's. And this is very important because we are seeing bad things happen in Tokyo, coming out of Tokyo right now. And this is the worst time ever to see one of our major trading partners, being Japan, meeting with China because China wants to stop our economy. Again, out of Barron's, Tokyo stock slump after surprise Bank of Japan bond market move. It says Tokyo stock slumped, underperforming Asian peers on Friday after the Bank of Japan made a surprise announcement that it would intervene in the market for the government bonds, having previously stepped back from a policy of yield curve control. Now, what does that mean? That means that they do not have enough buyers, so rates are getting out of control. They need someone to buy bonds, so they are becoming the buyer of last resort. That's bad. When you are the buyer of last resort, then you're going to be grasping at straws. Now, we know that Japan's done this before, but you have to understand, with this lining up with that historical number of 150 yen to the dollar, which is a big psychological difference, and Japan making that announcement last November, it is a big deal. Plus, add China, BRICS, and all of that stuff. Tokyo's benchmark Nikkei 225 lost 0.1% on Friday, a firm underperformance as Hong Kong's Shang Sen index rallied 2.5% after action from the Japanese central bank. The Bank of Japan stepped in the bond market to limit the recent rapid rise in Japanese government bond yields, said Rafi Boyjahan, an analyst at Broker XM. The BOJ purchased up to 300 billion yen of Japanese government bonds between 5 and 10-year maturities after the 10-year yield hit a decade high earlier in the session. First, we already know that what's going on in Japan is bad, and it's also bad for us. But you have to realize, in our country, that's why our yields are going crazy. A lot of people are under this illusion that the Fed is in control right now. And I'm here to tell you that the Fed has 100% utterly lost control. They should have started raising rates when inflation first really peaked and popped past 2% around September of 2021, but they didn't do it. Why? And you've got to realize this. It's because they want this out of controlness, because they want this market to tank. They want you in a position where you're going to lose everything. I know it sounds crazy, But wealthy people throughout the world have known this for the centuries. You expand credit, you make it easy for the masses to get in too deep, and then you tighten credit. You do that a handful of different ways. And right now, one of the ways is through interest rates rising, and then everything comes crashing down, and you buy up all the assets for pennies on the dollar. In the past, this is why public utilities become private utilities, because the city governments and local governments, county governments end up becoming so broke themselves that the bankers come in and they take over your utilities. And then over the decades and centuries, they ratchet up that price, squeezing you even more. People need to realize that is how modern day slavery has formed. It's debt slavery. All right. Now it says here the central bank buying bonds would push yields lower because bond prices and yields move inversely to one another, and mass buying spree would send prices up. All right, now that is going to eventually happen. The Fed is going to have to intervene and start buying bonds in our country as well. The fewer people that show up to the bond buying window, the higher the yields go. And they don't want them to get too out of control, and they want to be able to still give that illusion that they're doing everything they can. So it's very important. And then the other thing, and this goes with what BG is saying, thanks to the super chat, is eventually people start liquidating bonds. And when you have net sellers, and I want people to just understand this, there are a lot of people that are going to be selling their Japanese bonds into this news. Why? Because you have a liquidity event. You have the Bank of Japan stepping in and providing liquidity. So there are people that are going to sell into that. That same effect is going to happen when the Federal Reserve pops in and starts buying up our bonds. Okay, they're going to start monetizing debt. And think about this. There will be a day also where the Federal Reserve will stop buying. The only reason they would stop buying, though, is if they knew that they had a government that was not backing the bank. And I'm telling you right now, that's why 2024 is so important, the election, because they know Trump will not back them all the way. They know that Biden will indebt our country and run deficits like crazy and tax the people to death to pay that stuff back. You need to watch what's going on this next year. The reason why I wanted to bring you this story is because Japan is such a massive trading partner and economic partner in that they hold a lot of dollars and they hold a lot of bonds. When, and I'm not saying if, they start selling these, because they're going to, because their yen is crashing versus other currencies, which means their trade imbalances are massive. It's so unfair for them. And remember, I want people to understand this. This is why eventually, through the government messing with Japan's economy, through sanctions and other things, is ultimately what led Japan to pushing into Pearl Harbor and attacking Pearl Harbor. And I'll tell you this, there are people in our country that knew exactly what Japan was going to do, and they wanted it because war got us out of a lot of things. And a lot of innocent men and women's blood were shed on both sides of that war because of greedy globalists. That spirit is alive and running crazy in this country, in this world right now. And we need to stand up and do something about it. And so that means we need to stop this vow of poverty crap, and we need to occupy the land. And that means ownership, and that means no debt. That's why it says it in the Bible. Start getting ready. And I'll tell you what, I'll make you a promise. When you get out of debt, the money will not only flow in like you wouldn't believe, but your confidence level will 10x. And then you will be able to, your mind will free up to where you will see more opportunities than you could ever shake a stick at. Look, I got to get on the road. It's time to get to Vegas, baby, and see everyone at the Silver Symposium. So with that being said, the Economic Ninja is out.